Bacteria and biomagnetism. What is a bacterium? Bacteria are unicellular and prokaryotic organisms, that is, their genetic material is not found within a nuclear membrane. Unlike the cells of the animal, plant and fungal kingdoms, which are eukaryotic since they have a membrane nucleus. Bacteria are the most numerous organisms on Earth and are found in practically any habitat. Their size can vary between 0.5 and 5 microns in length, making them much larger compared to viruses. They generally have a cell wall composed of peptidoglycans, and some have flagella that serve as locomotion devices. Bacteria play a very important role in the ecosystem, since they help the recycling of various elements and substances. In summary, life on Earth would not be possible without bacteria, but most of them are estimated to be 90% not studied by science, since they could not be cultivated in the laboratory. Classification. Bacteria have evolved into a kingdom now known as Monera that includes eubacteria and archaebacteria. Some classify archaea in a completely separate kingdom, due to the marked metabolic and structural differences they present. Archaebacteria developed millions of years ago, in the conditions of the primitive Earth, with high degrees of acidity, temperature or salinity. They are divided into three groups. Extreme thermoacid phials. They proliferate in acidic lakes with volcanic activity or deep sea. Methanogens. They produce methane. Extreme halophils. They live in high salinity environments. Bacteria are divided into cyanobacteria, have a photosynthesis process. Bacteria proliferate in much of the biosphere. Types of respiration. Over millions of years, organisms have had to adapt to live in different environmental conditions. Initially, the bacteria were anaerobic, that is, their metabolism did not require oxygen. Many of them were strictly anaerobic, that is, they die in very low concentrations of oxygen. After millions of years, the planet's atmosphere began to have high concentrations of oxygen, so the bacteria had to adapt to this new environment. Aerobic bacteria emerge. They also found the advantage that oxygen allowed them to oxidize sugars or fats, thus obtaining much more energy. Obligate aerobic bacteria are those that cannot survive without oxygen, while facultative anaerobes have adapted to function both in the presence and in the absence of oxygen. Morphology. Bacteria can also be classified according to morphology into four main groups: coco, spherical bacillus, elongated vibrio, shaped like a comma, spirochete, spiral-shaped. And as a result of their morphology, way of grouping, our tendency to form colonies, we can have diplococci, which are two-grouped spheres. Streptococci or rows of various cocci. Staphylococcus cluster of cocci. Streptobacilli consisting of a row of bacilli, etc. Types of membrane. It is also important to mention another characteristic of bacteria, which refers to their type of membrane, which can be formed by a single or double layer of lipids. This peculiarity was studied by the biologist Hans Christian Gram. Using a dye that reveals the type membrane that the bacteria has. The bacterium is treated with the Gram stain method, gentian violet. If it retains a violet color, it is said to be gram-positive, indicative of having a simple membrane. Otherwise, when it is not stained purple, only presenting a red or pinkish coloration, it is said to be gram-negative, and therefore its membrane has a double lipid layer. The fact of having a single or double membrane gives bacteria different characteristics, such as their resistance, or the type of antibiotics that can be used in each case. Gram-negative bacteria also produce endotoxins in their membranes, which are toxic to their hosts. Bacterial morphology. Bacteria are prokaryotic cells, that is, their cell nucleus is not delimited by a membrane. Instead they have a nucleoid where deoxyribonucleic acid or circular DNA is found. They also have RNA, responsible for synthesizing proteins from DNA. Its membrane has invaginations called mesosomes where many chemical processes are carried out, including bacterial respiration. And of course they have a cytoplasm. In addition to the previous structures that are basic, they can also have some others such as membrane. The cell membrane can have a single or double lipid layer. It has a structural, protective function, and allows biochemical interaction with the environment. Cytoplasm or protoplasm. It is found inside the cell membrane and has a gel-like consistency. It contains a large quantity of nutritive and waste substances and a high percentage of water. Capsule. Covered with polysaccharides that help regulate the exchange of substances with the external environment, including water, thus preventing them from dehydration. They also help the bacteria adhere with others of their species to form colonies, and a function more very important is that it makes it difficult for the bacteria to be phagocytosed. Other bacteria can develop attachments such as cilia, flagella, or endopoles, which allow them to have mobility. Pili or hairs that allow bacteria to adhere or exchange genetic material. Plasmids are DNA molecules that the bacterium has, in addition to the DNA of the nucleolus, which contains a genetic code that can provide the bacteria with special functions or characteristics. Inclusions. They are like bags where bacteria store nutrients. Endospores. They are formed when certain bacteria encounter adverse situations, especially due to lack of nutrients. The endospore forms inside the bacteria, and then the mother bacteria dies, and only the endospore remains, which is highly resistant to the environment, because it has several protective layers. Its metabolic functions are suspended. Once it finds the right environment, a new bacterium forms again from the endospore. It is worth mentioning that bacteria reproduce asexually. By binary bipartition, after the replication of their circular DNA. Pathogenic bacteria. It is estimated that for every cell in our organisms there are 10 bacterial cells, so we understand that only a small portion of the existing bacteria are pathogenic. And that in special cases, as biomagnetism has shown. They are usually found in our body without causing any damage and sometimes helping the metabolic processes of our own body. Some become pathogenic when the environmental conditions are altered, then the infection arises, although we know that many of the infections are acquired by contagion. It is always necessary that the organism is out of balance and with a depressed immune system, so that pathogens can proliferate. The damage that bacteria can cause is due to two aspects: virulence. That is, how much the microbe can reproduce and affect tissues and organs. Toxicity. Many bacteria secrete toxins or enzymes or other substances derived from their metabolism that affect the host. The toxins are intended to alter the host and thus allow infection. Some examples of bacteria and toxins are Clostridium botulinum or botulinum toxin. Powerful toxin that affects the nervous system and can cause death. The toxin is used as an aesthetic treatment in Botox. Clostridium difficile. Toxins A and B. Clostridium tetani. Tetanospasmin toxin, which causes tetanus. Microbacterium leprae. Causative of leprosy. Biomagnetism treatment. Biomagnetism follows the same protocol for all types of pathogens. In the case of bacteria, according to Dr. Goes, they proliferate in alkaline environments. So just by balancing the pH by applying the biomagnetic pair, bacterial infections can be treated. The application time ranges from 10 to 20 minutes. And always checking the balance of the body by measuring the length of the legs. As always, it is recommended to carry out a complete screening since many times the most serious conditions appear when there is an association between several pathogens, either because they are viruses, bacteria, fungi, or parasites. Bacterial diseases have several routes of transmission. It can be through saliva and nasal secretions, in the case of respiratory infections. Intestinal infections are commonly transmitted through excrement, so they can be on the hands, various objects, food washed down with contaminated water. Sexual contact can also be a form of bacterial transmission, as in the case of chlamydia or gonorrhea, and less frequent is the transmission by animals or insects as in the case of Yersinia pestis, which can be transmitted by infected fleas or rats. Depending on the type of bacteria, the biomagnetism will have to inquire about the contagion route to take the pertinent measures. The general measures that we can state are: sneeze into the inner corner of the elbow. Wash your hands before eating and after using the bathroom. Wash and disinfect food. Avoid eating in street venues Do not consume expired food or in battered cans. Use protective methods in sexual intercourse. Immunosuppressed people should take extreme precautions to avoid contagion. Remember that the most complete information on biomagnetism can be found at biomagneticguide.com. We hope this video has been of interest to you. You can leave us your comments or suggest any other topic that you want us to present. If you liked this video, give us a like. We invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell. Thanks for following us.